In this video, we'll be going over a new authentication which is fairly new, which is called Kind. And one of the very good things about this authentication is that it provides us various different kind of features like passwordless authentication. It gives us the ability to access through various different social accounts like Google, Facebook, Twitter. We have support for enterprise customers with single sign-ons. We have multi-factor authentications. We have organizational structure which we can implement, and we also have a fairly decent dashboard. I've seen better ones, but this also works. And then we have feature flags which we can use to provide features to specific users based on the flags which we implement. And one of the very good things about Kind is that for the first 7,500 users, monthly active users, it's free. So what this means is that we can iterate over through ideas, implementing this authentication, and see whether our MVP works or not. So that's a plus point in my book. So this is what we'll be building today. So it's a fairly simple application. It just shows you how to implement Kind auth in a Next.js 13 with the app directory. So I've got two routes. So the first one is dashboard. I've not signed in yet, so this is protected. I misspelled that, so it's dashboard. So you see we get this message here, and this is server side. The dashboard is server side and the client is client side rendered, and that also you get this message. And then we have an endpoint called protected, and you're getting unauthorized because we haven't signed in yet. So now if I go to the main page, sign in, and this is the custom page which I built. So I've put a brand logo here, and all of this is customizable. So if I sign in to one of my accounts, and if I wait, this is the dashboard. This is server side rendered, so it's very fast. And if I go to client now, I get the client page. And if I go to protected, which is an endpoint, I get the endpoint. So this is what we'll be building today, and hope this is useful. So here I'm in the sign up page for Kind. So I'll be signing up with Google. You could also do with GitHub or manually create an account. I'll just do it with Google and create a new account for one of my accounts, and then we can give a business name. So I'll give it as Productify It, and you can see we've got a domain also which will be used for the authentication. I'll give the region, I'll keep it as Australia, Sydney. I'll keep it as actually US, Oregon, and I give next. Okay, so because I've already built this before, so it's giving me this domain is already taken, so I'll give it a v2. So this should probably create account for me. So in here, the next configuration I want to do is start a project from scratch. I'll hit next, and since we will be building with Next.js, I'll select Next.js. We have all these other options. I'll go with Next.js and hit next. And how do users sign in? I'll give it, you have Facebook, Google, Twitter. You have other options as well, but for now, since most of the users sign in with Google, I'll give it as Google. I'll hit next, and we have this pop-up next. So I'll say connect with your Next.js code base. So I'll hit connect, the first option. So in this, we'll have to install these dependencies. I'll click on copy here and go to my VS Code, and in here, in a new instance, we can actually paste in that line of code here. So here what I've done here is I've already created a Next.js application with npx create next app at latest, and I've removed all the boilerplate, put in just the styling, and the global.css I've removed the initial code which was there, and that will give me this page right here. and these two buttons don't do anything as of now because it's just a button. And if we go back to our docs here, in here, for the environment variables, we'll have to create a new env file or env.local file, copy in this. So if you go here, I've already have my env file here. If I go here, you can see these configuration being made. So I just copied this and put in here. So the main difference is here. So if you've copied it directly from their docs and pasted it here, you should be getting your client secret here. I've just removed this and pasted this string right here because I don't want anybody to know about the secret key. So in here we have a couple of configurations. So the first is the kind site URL. So you'll have to, as we are in our local machine, we are using HTTP local host 3000, and if you're hosting it somewhere, you'll have to change this accordingly. I'll show you how to register a domain as well. And this is the URL which points to when you log out. So this is again the home page, and once you've successfully signed in, this redirect URL is the URL when you successfully sign in, which is the dashboard. So that is it. I'll close this now, and I'll also be pasting my key here. So I've pasted in my secret key, which I was given by their docs. And now if you go back to the documentation, go to home, I'll show you how to register your domain if you're deploying your application in somewhere like Vercel or AWS. So if you go down here, we have this allowed callback URLs. So in here you'll have to give in the domain which was assigned to you by Vercel or which you've created. If you've paid for the domain, you can just register it here, give the callback with the same API/auth/kind callback. So, and this will be your domain name, and the same thing goes over here, and you'll have to save it. So that way you won't get a coarse error while deploying your application and using the kind authentication. So that's it for the configuration. And one more thing would be, if I go to settings, if I go to design here, not settings, and you can also change the way how your login page appears. So we'll be doing this later. First let us use that default and then we can move on. So if I go back to my Next.js application, in here now what we'll have to do is, under app we'll have to create a new folder called API, and inside this we'll have to create a new folder again called auth, and again inside auth we'll have to create a folder called, in brackets, called kind auth. So now here we can create a file called route.ts. We can import handle auth from kind and next request from next server, and from there we can export async function. We'll have to export an async function which will be a get request, and inside that we'll have a request. We'll also have to give the type, which is next request, and we'll have the params as well, and I'll just give it a type of any, and inside that we'll have a constant called endpoint, and this will be of params dot kind auth. So this is all from the documentation. I've copied it exactly how it is, and it just works. So with this, what we're doing is we have access to all of Kind's APIs by returning this handle auth request endpoint. So now we can sign in, log in, sign up, log out, all that. So just with this configuration, it's very simple. And now I'll close this, and we can start building our sign in and login page. Actually, we don't even have to build it. We'll just have to make a few imports and it'll be done for us. So at the top here, I'll just import a register link and login link from this folder right here. and I'll just replace this button with login link and register link. Yeah, so with this, our login and sign up flow is also done. So if I go back here to my Next.js application, I'll just refresh it just in case. Now if I click sign up page, I should have gotten the sign up page, but which I'm not, which means I've made an error. So if I go back here, I can see I've made a typo here. So this should not be permas, it should be params. I think that should fix it. So if I go back here, refresh it and hit sign up, I get this page. Same with sign in. Let's check sign in and I get this page. So now if we go back here, we can customize our login page and sign up page. So for the brand logo, I'll just upload an image which I have. So it can be anything. I'll just give in this one right here and wait for it to load. So now once it's finished loading, I can just save it. Okay, so the brand is successfully saved. I'll go back to home here, and as you can see, there's total users is 0. I'll go back here, refresh it, go to sign up. I should be getting the logo now. Yeah. So in that way you can customize all of this as well, but for now I think this looks good enough. So I'll register an account. I'll hit continue and choose one of my accounts. Yeah. So once I've signed up, it redirects me to this page dashboard, which does not exist. But if I go back here and hit refresh, you can see the total user is 1 and he joined a few seconds ago, which is true. So now in here you can see I'm also getting the metadata of the access token, ID token, all of that. So now what we'll do is we'll create a new page for the dashboard. So for that, under the app directory, let me create a new folder called dashboard, and inside that we can have a page.tsx file, and I'll give a RAFCE, and in here I can just call it dashboard, and I'll hit save. I'll go back here, go to my next app, and you can see I'm getting dashboard. So this, so if you wanted the user to be redirected to the login page, sorry, not login, say let's say canvas or something, all you have to do is go to the env file, and in there for the redirect URL, you'll just have to mention the canvas page. I won't be opening this because we have our secret key there. And now if you want to get the data of the user, you'll have to import get kind server session from @kind oss kind auth next.js/server. So this is server side, that's why it's server. So now in here I can destructure get user, and I can also get is authenticated from get kind server session. If I console log out the get user as well as the is authenticated, and is authenticated, let's see what we get here. So if I go back here, go to Firefox, refresh it, open my DevTools and go to console, you can see I've got nothing here. Okay, yeah, my bad. So because this is server side rendered, you should be getting the logs in your terminal. So here you can see it's function a function is authenticated. So this is because this here is a function, and to get the data of the user you'll have to call it here. So get user, and I'll console log out the user here. So now we should be getting the data of the user, and is authenticated is a function. So what we can do is we can say return is authenticated, which is a function, and if this is true, what I can do is I can say user is authenticated, and if it's false, we can say user is not authenticated. Now if I go back here, you can see user is authenticated. So that's how we can know whether the user is authenticated or not. Get kind server session gives us two things: a get user function and is authenticated function. This returns us whether the user is authenticated or not. As you can see, if I hover here, this function returns a boolean value which is true or false. So that's what is being done here. Now let me just paste in the styling for this, and we can move on to the next part. So I'll just do that. I'll select everything and I'll just paste in all the styling as well. So if I save this now, and you can see I'm getting error message here. This is because we haven't registered this domain in our Next.js config file. So if I go back to VS Code, go to Next.js config, and inside here it should be images, which is an object, and then it's a domains, which is an array. So here we'll have to register that domain which we just copied, and just save it here, and now it should be working. So I'll just refresh it and it should work now. Yeah, so now I'm getting the image as well, the name, the email, and the sign out button. And if I go back here, I don't think I've explained the sign out part. So for sign out, again, you just have to import logout link from this folder path here, and you just use it like a button. So it's logout link, and you give in the name of the link, sign out, and you just paste in the styling. That's what I've done. That's all there is to it. So now if I go back to Mozilla and hit sign out, that should sign me out of the dashboard, and I've been redirected to the home page. So next what we'll do is so this is all client side now. This is all server side. So what if you want this get user and is authenticated in the client side? So for that, what we'll have to do is we'll have to create a new API endpoint to get the session. So in under, let's say, API, let's create a new folder called kind session. So this is for getting the session data in our client's side page. So that's what we'll be doing now. So kind session, and inside this I'll create again a route file, route.ts. I think this should be here. Move. Yeah, that fixed it. Now inside the kind session, again we can import these, and then we can create a export async function, and the name will be get. We don't have to pass in anything, and then we can just get those data. So get user is authenticated. You can also get permissions. We can also have get organizations. All of these which will be given to us by get server session. So then what we can do is we can get the user from get user. We can get the authentication status, whether the user is authenticated or not, from is authenticated. So authenticated, sometimes I just keep on waiting for the AI to give me the suggestion, but it does not, so that takes some time. So next is const permission, get permissions, you get all the permissions, and last is the organizations. Now what we'll have to do is we'll just have to return it to whoever is calling this endpoint. So I can just say next response and .json user authenticated permission and organization. So that's it. I'll just save everything here. Now I'll create a new page called client. So I'll just minimize all this. Is minimum, okay, yeah. So in this I'll create a new folder called client, and I'll say page.tsx, and I'll mention okay, first thing I'll do is RAFCE, and I'll say client, and I'll save it. I'll go back here just to see whether this page is being created or not. So if I go to client, as you can see, we can still go. We'll put a middleware here very soon, but for now this page is being created. So let me go back to VS Code here, and for the client this should be a use client, and then we can create a state. So this will store our user with the user's data. In this we'll be storing it here. Okay, so that does not work. I'll just do it manually then. Use state, and I'll just give it as any for now. And here what I can do is I can import use state, and I can just go that, and I'll also do the same thing for authentication. So I'll just name it as auth status and set auth status. This will be null. So now we can make the call in a use effect. So use effect, and in here let's say const res await will fetch from API slash, I'll give a slash on top as well, and here I'll say kind session, and because it's an await, we can create the function here itself. So const get kind session, so this will be an async function, and we can wrap it around this function. So const res, and then this we'll get the data from res.json, and we can set the user to data.user, and same thing with set auth status to data.auth status authenticate. Yeah, so this is giving me an error because I'll have to await it. Yep. And then outside of this I want the function to run only once, and say get kind session here. Now if I save it and say I console log out the user, and I console log out the auth status, if I go back here you can see okay, this is a really cool tool called, I think it's called console ninja. So you can see the console logs over here itself, but I'll show it to you in here. So you can see undefined false because we are not authenticated yet. So if I go back to the local host, sign in again, continue with Google, select the account which was registered, I've been redirected to the dashboard. Now if I go to client page, I should be getting all the data. So you can see we are authenticated, which is true, and we get the user data. I'll just style in this as well. So if I go back here, and I'll just paste in all that styling. So in here I'll just paste in the stylings as well, and as well as I've put in the types here. So this user will be from kind user, and the auth status will be null at the beginning. So now if I go back here, I hit refresh, you can see I'm getting this right here, which is the what we wanted. And if I go to my console, we'll get the data as well as whether it's authenticated or not. So this is basically how we would do it for the client side of Next.js, and the dashboard is still server side. Yeah. So the next step would be to put a middleware here, so that we are not able, like if the user is not authenticated, he should not be redirected. He should not be able to access that page. So for that, what we'll have to do is, under app, we'll create a new file called middleware.ts, and in here we can import auth middleware, and from export const config, this will be an object, and we can say matcher. Again, put an array here. So in here I'll just paste in a line of string. So what this basically says is that other than the API, next static, next image, and favicon.ico, match all the other files to the middleware. So which means that you only authenticated users can access the files other than the ones which I mentioned here. Then what we can do is, I'll just export default auth middleware, and I hit save. Now if I refresh and go to dashboard, I misspelled that, BOARD, that should be the one. Okay, I'm still able, okay, I get it, what's happening. So if I go to dashboard again, I'm still signed in, we still have the data. I'll just sign out for now. Cool. Now if I try to access it, I get please sign in or register. Same thing with client, please sign in or register. So we've added the middleware. So the next, finally, what we can do is we can create an endpoint, and I'll show you how to protect your endpoints as well. So under API, we can create a new folder called protected, and inside that, let's create a file called route.ts, and in here I'll make some imports, which is next response and get kind server session. So now we can just create export async function. This will be a get request. So get, the same would be true for post as well. So now in here I can just get the user. So I can get user, and as well as is authenticated from get server session, get kind server session. So once that's done, I can say if is authenticated is false, then we can send return new response saying unauthorized. I hope that's correct. And we can give a status of 200 or 401, sorry. 200 is for when it's accurate. So const next up is, I'll just get the user from get user, and I'll also get the data. I'll create a data and give a message saying hello user, and I'll say ID, I'll give user dot id, and we can return this. So return next response dot json, and I'll give it the data. So if I save this now, and if I go back here, go to Firefox, refresh this, and if I remember correctly, I'm not authenticated at the moment. So API/protected. So in here I'm just getting a blank screen. So if I go back, navigate back to VS Code and look at my code here, I can see I've made a mistake. So this should be bracketed, because is authenticated is a function and I'm just not giving the bracket here. So probably that is the mistake. So if I save again, go back to Mozilla, hit refresh, I get unauthorized. Okay, so now it's working. Let me navigate back to the main page, sign in. I'll continue in with Google, go to that account, and now I'm the dashboard. So if I go to API/protected, I get the user, hello user and ID. So this also works. So with this, we've implemented kind authentication to our Next.js application. And if you all would like to see some advanced features like flag feature, or say multi-factor authentication, passwordless authentication, let me know down in the comment section below. We'll make it happen. And if you've stuck all the way to the end, thank you, really appreciate it. Until next time.